Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiasts, Nick and Laura. On today's episode, we discuss dealing with challenging work. We talk to Soham Adla about agricultural sustainability, real-world problem solving, and the power of music. And finally, here are some fun facts about peacocks. They exhibit sexual dimorphism where only the males are bright blue with giant feathers. That usually takes them about 3 years to fully develop. But they can also be born pure white. Unlike albinism, though, which typically includes loss of pigmentation, this is leucism, or a genetic condition that results only in the loss of pigment from feathers. So that's how you get white peafowls. Very, very rare in nature. But of course, we figured that out and now selectively breed for that. How about that? Hit that music. The annual NAEP Conference and Training Symposium will occur from Sunday, May 5th to Wednesday, May 8th at the Renaissance Minneapolis Hotel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's always a great time and will feature all of your favorite planning sessions with some regional flair thrown in there for fun. Please register at www.naep.org. I hope to see you there. Let's get to our segment.
But yeah, just how do you stay motivated to do stuff that you don't want to do? This has been my problem for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's like I'm having to force myself to do it. And it's really hard, really hard to force yourself to do something.
Yes, it is. That's a great question.
A loaded question.
Well, I mean, there's lots of things, like every job, no matter what, is going to have stuff you don't like to do. There is not a job on this planet that is going to be every single thing that you want, right? So no matter what, you've got to deal with some things that aren't fun. The best way to not do those things is to find someone else who likes to do that and have them do it instead, right? That is the simplest way to do it. For me personally, I don't love accounting type stuff. I don't love, if it's like a detail oriented thing, I'm such a big picture person. I love, pie in the sky, strategy. How do we plan out our entire year? How do we plan out the next 5 years? How do we, get to where we want to be? I love doing that. And then if I'm managing a project and they're like, okay, well, that's great. But so your finances are XYZ and you have this much money left before the end of the year and you need to get your invoices in and, oh, you're off by a penny. And it's like, for me, it's just my least favorite thing. It's just my least favorite thing. I'm like, we're talking about a penny and I have to spend an hour talking about a penny. Like it just kills me. Right. And so one of the things that, especially as you go along in your career, like I always tell people to find what your boss doesn't like to do and do that. And it's the fastest way to build your relationship with that person. And I have some people that have taken that to heart. I have somebody that helps me do that. I mean, I still have to review the invoices. I still have to, and there's actually a couple of people doing that. I still have to, have some amount of say in it. But the tedious part that I don't like, that there is a benefit there, a tangible benefit. So that's one way to do it, is to try to use your influence to help get people to help you. Because if it's mind numbing, if it's really wearing you out, then you aren't going to enjoy doing it no matter what. Doesn't mean you always get someone else to help you. And like I say, I still have to do it. I still have to be involved, but I don't have to do every single part of it. And it gets more challenging, if it's something that no one can help you with. But if that's the case,
that was my question. It's like, well, what if you're kind of at not necessarily the bottom of the rung, but you're the only one who can kind of do it. And so how do you?
Yeah. Well, there's different ways. I think every company can handle things differently, right? So if it's a GIS thing, for example, right? So just using that as an example, is if your company has GIS people, some of them can help do some of that GIS tasking. If they're all busy, and this is true of almost any task, it doesn't have to be a GIS, it can be anything. Then sometimes you can get a sub to supplement some of the work that you're doing. You can get a group of people to come help do those kinds of projects or that kind of task if it's a small level thing. And it's leveraging relationships. You're building a network. You're building a work together with either a new sub that can help you get more work in the future, or an existing sub and strengthening the relationship that you already have. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. It's not just using, getting other people to help you. Sometimes it's literally taking that big picture approach and finding a solution to your problem that's broader than just the small task that the task that you're trying to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to do that. And, sometimes, you've got to grin and bear some of the work, especially earlier in your career. I remember a few things. I think I've told this story, but I'm not sure. Like, I was early in my career where we have an EIS, environmental impact statement. We're mailing out 150 FedEx boxes, but it is like December 21st, right?
Ew.
It is the holidays. It is the weekend before the holiday. And so maybe it's the 22nd, whatever it is, like we aren't coming back until Tuesday. And we're there till like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., trying to get this thing out to FedEx, right? Just trying to get these things out to FedEx. And the amount of people that said, "Oh, are you wrapping Christmas presents?" as they were walking out the door to go home to their families. By the fifth one, I'm like, if another person says this, I'm going to be on the news later, right? It's like, it was terrible. It was really tough. And you get through it and you kind of live to see another day. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that in the beginning of your career. Some of that will slow down, some of it will change. And if it's stuff that you can find solutions to, with support, other support,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great way to do it. Understanding that even, menial tasks don't last forever and they're never going to be the only thing you're doing or not the most, you'll be able to adjust your career as you go to things you really do want to do and do care about. And the longer you're in it, the easier that becomes in a way. So I know that's not a, smoking gun answer per se, but yeah, those are a couple of ways that you could do that.
Cool. Right now, my solution is to blast music and just use the Nike slogan and just be like, just do it, Sam.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah. And that'll work, here and there. If that's like your whole job, it's going to kill you. Mm. And, we've got to find other things for you to do. And the Nike swoosh, I love that. Just do it. Does help sometimes. I mean, like, I remember, gosh, there was a similar thing, right? Where we were doing the same kind of mailing effort. Because we were doing this all the time. And it's like you have to make sure everything's listed correctly. You have to check all these addresses. So much of that is tedious. So much of it is like, oh, well, actually, this says, 22012 and it should be 22010. And, it's like, for the zip code and stuff like that. And you're just like killing yourself. And so I think we're all laboring through this thing. And I'm like, you know what? Music time. And I just like put on like an 80s pop station on
nice.
It wasn't even Spotify at the time because that's how I'm dating myself, but like whatever the heck it was. And then it was just like a miracle, right? Immediately everybody started feeling better. And it's almost like I had to bring fun into what I was doing and make it fun for me. I used to do things like, I remember I had to do a project where I had 500 different types of ammunition and they all had to be, basically I was adding columns to make sure I had the amount of ammunition used at this firing range. So that when I was discussing the project and writing the DAPA for this NEPA project, I had the right numbers, right? Because someone was going to check this. Someone's going to add these up and make sure that they're, and it seems like a simple thing, but it was a huge spreadsheet. There's lots of different parts to it. And so it wasn't just like, copying and pasting. I had to literally make sure that I was doing it correctly. So I just made a game of it. And I ended up like using I was like, okay, I'm going to do this one in, 10 seconds. And I'm going to do this one in 17 seconds. And I'm going to do this one in 3 seconds or whatever it is. I'm trying to like beat my own time as to how fast I can do check the data for each row and column that I had to do. It was silly, but it ended up making my experience less ridiculous. Yeah. It was almost like I had to trick my brain into like making it more challenging or making it more complicated. Like I had to create a puzzle. And once I did that, I was able to like get through it. And that was, a full week's worth of work that I was doing. And so it was like, because you can do tedious things for like an hour or a day and it's not the end of the world. But when it's like every day, it's really hard. And so that ended up being what I was doing. I would just like create games for myself, right? It's important for me. It's important. That's the kind of thing I had to do. Find the fun, so to speak.
Find the fun. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, there you go. That's our segment for today. And let's go ahead and get to our interview. Hello and welcome back to EPR. Today we have Dr. Soham Adla, a product manager and researcher specializing in impact-oriented agricultural sustainability. Welcome, Soham.
Hi, Nick.
Thank you so much for being here. First of all, okay, tell me what impact-oriented agricultural sustainability means. What is that?
Yeah, I think it sounds fancier than it's supposed to be. Basically, I'm a city boy, and I happened to go to a university which was surrounded by farms all over. And I like biking, so I was biking around, and I happened to be curious. I went off the road a few times, started talking with farmers, and then I tried to talk to farmers about their problems. I mean, that generally comes up because they see this person probably wearing jeans or something coming to them, and this is very weird for farmers in India to have people, coming to them on bikes and talking to them about their problems. And this was very strange conversation. These led to very strange conversations. But what I took back was a lot of learning, which led to me questioning what I was being taught at university, for example. So the problem statements that were being taught to me in university, for which we had these engineering solutions, they sort of didn't really exist in the same form in reality, or in my reality when I interacted with these farmers. So what I mean by impact-oriented agricultural sustainability is identifying the right problems together with the people facing these problems, and then trying to address them, which leads to real impact. And then, sustainability is a way to look at problems beyond their limited scope in that sense. So, looking at it from the perspective of it sustaining beyond the intervention, let's say, of the solution. Yeah.
Right. There's so many different directions to go. But wait, I have to go back to the beginning of that. So you just randomly started talking to farmers just on a whim. Like you were curious and you decided to go talk to them. Was there anything that sparked that curiosity?
Well, more or less, because why I would talk to the farmers there would be multiple reasons. So farmers would look at me as an alien, more or less, because I looked so different from what they were wearing, for example. Just a T-shirt versus a shirt makes a lot of a difference
it really does.
In, let's say, really rural areas in India. So I also am not great with navigation, so I would lose my way a lot. So
me too. I'm right there.
So I really need to ask people to show me the way back home, or show me the way to some place which isn't a roadblock somewhere or something like that. So some farm, some road leading into a farm, which there's no way to go forward.
Right. So it's really things like that. It's like the journey. So some of more important. Go ahead.
I agree. So sorry, I was just saying that sometimes it was a need to talk to the farmers, and then the more I did it, the more natural it became.
Right.
Then it became, and then I had some friends also from these villages, and then it became more natural. I started meeting people and sharing stories. And farmers have really interesting stories. For the lack of a better word, they can be very extreme in terms of what they reveal and what they've had as experiences. Very different than what I've seen as a city boy, like I said. And and that taught me a lot. So then I went for this interesting exchange that I look forward to every time.
Yeah, and I love it because you were curious and willing to admit that you didn't know what you were going. I love that. So you've had these conversations, and I'm being genuinely interested in people is a great way to hear them as they are, right? They will tell you a lot more about themselves if you are genuine. So what are those solutions that you talk about? Like you said that you had some reality-based issues and problems. So what is an example of that? Like, where you didn't see it in university, but you did see the problem in the real world, quote unquote.
So one example I can give is that I used to go with a mobile phone with a digital survey once I was already, formalizing my work and trying to understand some sorts of barriers to sustainability at the farm. I would go with a digital app survey, which I thought was very fancy. I took it to the farmers. I'd ask them, hey, what's stopping you from being more sustainable on your farm, or improve, let's say, what's stopping you from improving your performance in terms of yields that you get for your crops? And I would have a lot of options, and there would be a lot of choices, generally something like not having enough water to irrigate the crops, or there being some sort of pest attack which they weren't able to manage, or something like that, less fertilizer, for example. And when farmers would reply to me saying that there's a group of wild boar, which a family of wild boar, which attacks my farm every time it's sort of ready, or a group of, I don't know what it's called, but a group of peacocks, for example, peacocks, peahens coming and destroying most of the crop in one night or something like that. Oh, wow. I had no place to really put it in my digital survey. Yeah. It had to be a huge others list, which I had to make. Because it became this animal attack, and I don't know, attacked by birds and things like that. And this is what I didn't expect to happen. And I didn't see a lot of scarecrows, which I do see in, let's say, Western movies. I didn't see a lot of scarecrows and in their farms. So I didn't imagine that this would be a problem, but it is sometimes. And for some crops with some animals. And yeah, this is something which was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, and that's really great. So that kind of, you get that feedback, which is really great that you're getting good, honest feedback, because that's the best way you can start addressing some of the problems. So how do you start doing that? How do you start addressing improving sustainability on these farms?
So perhaps taking it a step back, I think it's really important to identify the right problems that are actually faced by the people who face the problems. So what I would do is that instead of doing these one-on-one interviews with farmers where I just got to know about my own shortcomings in terms of my knowledge, I'd rather go in and join them in a, let's say, near a tea stall or under a tree where they're playing cards or something like that. Yeah. And then I would join them and then try to talk to them. And for the first few minutes, maybe even half an hour, of course, I can't come with my agenda, and then it feels very, it feels a little artificial if I go with my agenda and start speaking. So I'd rather listen to them and sort of meld with them to some extent. And then after an hour had passed where I was losing all my card games because I was distracted because I needed to talk to them about my stuff as well. They would start talking and they would ask me where I'm from and what I do and why I'm there. Yeah. And that sort of gave me permission to ask my questions in that sense. So now I know that they had some sort of patience for me and they had some space to talk to me. And once I started talking about my issues, they already removed a lot of the clutter that came with my university-educated questions, let's say. That sort of a narrative, let's say. And then they would remove a lot of that clutter and a lot of the assumptions, question a lot of the assumptions that I was coming with. And then it became a conversation which eventually and hopefully would lead to a co-creation of these problem statements, which were actually important and felt by them.
Yeah, so we know that the boar and peacocks are a challenge that they're facing.
There's another animal, a nilgai, and it phonetically, and I mean, from the word itself, nilgai is a blue cow, but it's a sort of a deer. It's a huge deer. Some of them have antlers, I suppose. So they were also there a lot in this region which is in the Ganga plain in the north of India. In Kanpur. So these are all different kinds of animals one has to deal with. Yeah,
that's too funny. Before we dive into some more of the research type work, you are in the Netherlands right now and your work is in India. So how does that work? I know we're kind of in a global space, but there's a lot of, farming's outdoors. It's in that area. So how does your work how are you able to do that work from a distance?
Yeah, so right now I'm in a development cooperation project. So it's a public-private partnership project, and the public funding is coming from an organization in the Netherlands, and that's why I'm in the Netherlands. And also because the academic part of the academic, let's say, partner is the university where I work with, which is TU Delft. I think they use it the other way around. So the Delft University of Technology or the TU Delft in Dutch. Yeah. So that's where I'm working. But we also have partners in India and non-governmental partners in India, as well as a cotton producer company, which brings the private part of the funding. And the cotton producer company wants some solutions about improving water-centric sustainability of their producing farmers. And that's how the whole project works. So the implementing partner, which has their feet on the ground, are the NGO and the cotton producer company, because they actually deal with these issues. And I guess we are the knowledge partners who try to do something on their laptops or something with data. Luckily, the good thing is that I end up visiting India often enough, and I see how the data is generated. Some of it is primary data directly from farmers. And that is, I try to at least have some say in that. So I lead these data collecting campaigns, let's say. We have a lot of help from the other partners, but I'm on top of it most of the times. So that's how this project works, more or less.
That's very, very cool. How far away is that? Is that an ordeal every time?
Well, I'm also going home, so I also look forward to the holidays at the end of this work. So,
for sure.
So it's an ordeal. It's not that long, actually. Maybe 10 hours, 10, 15 hours, depending on on how many stops you have. But it's not like a journey from the US to India.
No, I know. Yeah, US to India is much different. Yeah, it's one of my friends does that every now and then. I'm like, I don't know how you do it, but no. Anyway, so what is your day to day like? Are you talking to people? Are you problem solving? What do you do on a day to day basis?
Honestly, even if if my funding comes from a research-based funding and I'm at a university, it's relatively more consulting-like than a typical research project. So what I mean by that is, what I would imagine a research project is that you get some data and then you work on it for a long time, and then you sort of iterate your hypotheses and then do some experiments with the data, get some results, learn from them, go back into this loop. And that's what I would imagine a lot of, let's say, more desk-based research looks like. So what I'm doing is that I'm trying to basically scrum between a lot of people. So what that means is that I'm scrumming between the NGO and the cotton producer company and the research part of our team as well. So I have some partners, some people also working with me in the university. And at the same time, I'm also trying to develop this app. There's an app called Makar. So it spells out Makara, which is a Hindi name, which comes from the festival, the harvest festival. So that's why it's called Makar. And so what we're trying to do through this app is to tell farmers, or let's say give farmers a tool which they can use to actualize their risk related to yield or income and therefore profit. And I can explain this more later. But what I'm trying to say, that my day is full of keeping things on track for this project. So that's my scrumming role, let's say.
Yes.
And also working on this app development between different partners. That becomes my product management role, more or less. And then I'm also trying to do my research.
Right. So, is that it?
Yeah. So getting data, working on it. And all of these, let's say, learnings that we get from the research also go back into the development of this app and therefore the health of the project in that sense.
Okay. Yeah. So how does the app work then? What is the end goal for it?
The end goal has changed over time because we've seen that the app wasn't as well received earlier as it is now. So the current end goal is that it's farm calculator. So I'm using double quotes, and I don't know if people can see that, but so it's a farm calculator and, let's say, a best practice recommendation app. So what it does is that, and there's a funny story about it. We thought having a table with different inputs at the farm level for a farmer is very simple. It's a very small thing to just have, let's say, a table with different crops as columns and different inputs that farmers have from, let's say, sowing to harvest as the different rows. And then you enter how much you pay for your farm for this crop and so on. This was a very simple, very simplistic sort of a tool. And that this was just one of the features that we had in the app. And then when we went to the farmers with this feature and within the overall app, this is what attracted their eyes most. And we saw people gasping and stuff like that. And that sort of is a sad realization of how, let's say, how simple tools can help farmers, or how, and how much farmers may be, let's say, approximating or thumbing through their decision making. I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing. Nobody knows better about what farmers should do than farmers themselves, for sure. But such tools, if they can help them, then this is the least we can do as people who are used to the spreadsheet narrative and paradigm of things.
Right.
So this now has become one of the more primary, let's say, USPs of the product of this app. So it becomes a calculator, and then it also becomes a way for farmers to journal what they're doing during their season or cropping season. So there's a calendar view where they can journal stuff, and with that journal comes a list of best practices, which can come to you if through notifications and things like that. And you can have let's say a record of what you've done and what is suggested by the government or through our backend model, and that can be a nice way to keep track of things happening on the farm. And through this, you get this risk assessment of how much you can expect in terms of yield. So the probability of getting some sort of a range of yields and so on. So what initially was just this risk communication now becomes a calculator and a recommender or something like that.
Yeah, and it ends up.
And this is what is more useful, or let's say attractive to farmers. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it ends up like compounding over time. So like the more you use it, the better it gets, and the more data you have to support the best management practices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is very cool. So, it's funny, we're talking, it's kind of like a little bit of what you do is almost like translating grassroots issues, right, into solutions. So it's taking that piece from farmers that they latch onto and then expanding on it and providing them some valuable research or some valuable information. That's really hard to do without buy-in. We talked about how you did that, but do you have advice for anyone else who's trying to do something similar? Getting that collaboration has got to be challenging. You must have had some challenges along the way, getting some people in there. So how did you what were those challenges and how did you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, it's a very difficult, difficult to answer. Right. Because I don't have an elaborate answer for it, or a very, let's say, a clear answer to it. It really depends on context, of course. So I'd say that farmers who are used to technology, who are technologically literate, are a completely different kind of stakeholders compared to farmers who are not used to this kind of stuff. So what I mean to say is that we've tried feedback sessions with farmers over Zoom calls or WhatsApp group video calls or things like that. We could see that farmers also lose interest after a while because it's anyway an app. So it becomes very difficult to sort of imagine what it would mean for their lives in reality.
Right.
And then if you want to make this you want to discuss this abstract thing like an app over a video call, then it becomes even more, let's say, far away from reality, a step away farther from reality, because then it becomes more like you're looking at a screen with an app, you're looking at another screen with this video call going on. So it becomes a little, let's say, abstract. And but it could work for farmers who are used to a lot of technology in their farming decisions or their lives. But I think as a bottom line, I'd like to say that it's very important to keep discussing with the end user of whatever solution you want to propose. Because I think a lot of funding comes for solutions to be proposed, not problems to be found. So I think we live in that reality. So it'll be really strange if we don't accept that. But if we keep talking to the people who we want to help in that sense, then I think that's the thing which has worked for me, at least, at the most.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's wonderful advice. And like I say, I love asking challenging questions because you get good answers, But you've also got to have a bunch of stories of being out in the field. And we love on this show to ask our guests about their stories in the field. And so we always encourage folks to share those stories with us as well. So you have a degree in civil and environmental engineering. You've got a doctorate and all that. It's all great. What from all that, do you have any fun stories to share with us?
Oh yeah, I have a few. And sometimes they don't They don't sort of support that I have a doctorate in something.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah.
They make me feel a little stupid, but
Right. I'm a smart person. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And coupled with the usual, let's say, imposter syndrome that academics usually face. So
yes,
it doesn't really, it doesn't really help.
Exactly.
But it's always a learning experience. But this story is, let's say, 10 years old. So I was relatively younger, definitely not a doctorate, and definitely not aware of my limitations as much as I am right now. Yeah. So I was interning with a grassroots organization in a very dry region in the center of India. So it's a very drought-prone region. So the lack of water is actually an impediment for getting a lot of, to get the yield that farmers expect. And I went to this grassroots NGO, and they, seeing that I'm from some, a reputed institute where I was coming from, they sort of gave me a little bit of, let's say, freedom in how I designed my internship. And they told me, go with the participatory groundwater management team into our field, and promotes water saving measures in general. So we were supposed to first make a crop water balance, which is basically what it means is that you have a sort of an accounting of how much water comes in to the groundwater aquifer, and then how much water is used for different crops. And then you would do that accounting. You would see that there might be a small surplus or a deficit, and then you try to reduce that deficit or increase the surplus by, let's say, reducing the area under water-intensive crops, or changing the varieties of crops which are water-intensive, so to, let's say, less water-intensive crops. So, and all of this would work in the paradigm of the season where there would be some irrigation. So it's not the rainy monsoon season, it's let's say, the drier season.
Right.
And what is grown in the dry season in that region is mostly different varieties of wheat. So this is one of the things that is grown. So we were a team with me as let's say, the professional person who understood and talked in English and struggled in the local language. And then there are a lot of village experts, so very grounded experts who come from the community, who were basically guiding me wherever I had to go, and then translating things for me as well. And they were much more knowledgeable about the local realities than I was. And when I did all this calculation about the crop water budget, I found out what was, let's say, the deficit being caused by, and then there was a list of water-saving varieties of wheat that I was supposed to, promote to these farmers. Right. So I'm a person from a university. I have a group of farmers from the NGO, and we are going into villages, talking to people, promoting water-saving varieties of wheat.
Yeah.
And then we would do that every day. We would come back. They were hard, long days, and then we would talk to different stakeholders, different farmers, and then we would come back. We would get different kinds of responses. Some would say yes, just for the sake of saying it. I got to understand later.
right.
To get rid of us, basically.
Yeah, sure. We'll definitely do that. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some would be actually interested, and then we would have nice conversations. And so that it seemed like my internship was going well.
Yes.
Until one time when we were sitting under a tree, perhaps, a hot day, middle of the day, we were having lunch. And then for the first time, I turned around to the farmers who were in my team and asked them what kind of varieties of wheat they were growing. And none of them were growing the water-saving ones. And this was really, really crazy for me, because I thought, hey, wait, you have been told by an NGO to say something, and you're saying it with such conviction that I'm fooled. I know that you are really promoting it, and then you're not doing it, yourself. And this is really this is hypocrisy, and I'm part of it. And I didn't understand what this meant.
Yeah.
So I really it was hot. So I wasn't the most, let's say, patient in the way I expressed this shock to these farmers.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really patient. I was also young. I'm still young, but I was younger.
Right. More foolish.
And I wasn't really good with my words when I said this. And then the farmer who I really spoke to he made me sit down. And then he said the following to me. He said, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I know you're here for a few months. I know I know that your intentions are good. No problem with that. But if I, in my own home, use this water-saving variety of wheat, I only have a limited patch of land, and I get all the yield back home. I process it myself at local, let's say, processors, and it's my family that has to eat the bread, the rotis that are made by this wheat. Yes. And they're not soft enough if I use any of these varieties. And then this doesn't really, this doesn't really help me to subside over the year, because though they were subsistence farmers, they wouldn't have a lot of their crop yield produce going to the market. It would mostly come back home. Yeah. And if it's not edible for the family, or if it's not, comfortable for the family to eat, then why would they even grow it? Yeah. So it makes sense that they would probably not be able to get as much yield from the same area, but at least they don't have to go to the market to buy their wheat flour or something like that. Rather, they would have something from their own farm, which they knew what they put in. So it would be, let's say, organic in that sense. They would know how much they input, and then, it would be nice bread to eat every day.
That's incredible.
And that's really important to decide what you put into the farm.
Yeah, it's almost, it's like sometimes we get tunnel vision, right? Where our eyes are focused here with the limited scope, and then someone opens the window and you can say, oh, there's a world outside. And that's kind of what you're describing right there. That's a really great story.
Totally. I mean, I think that is the reason why I went from something called plant water movement or eco-hydrology to something called socio-hydrology, which works in between human water interactions in whatever context it's applied to. Yeah. So I do mostly social hydrology in agricultural contexts. Yeah. And it's so important to understand why people make the decisions they do in that context.
Yeah, that's a great example of a formative experience that's kind of influenced the way you've done the rest of your work. And, it's great. We love talking about that kind of stuff on the show. And I know you have a story for us, too, about your trials and tribulations through the academic process, with your research. So why don't you share that story with us as well?
Oh, yeah. I'm happy I can say this now because it's in the past and I sort of crossed a hurdle. But when you're going through, let's say, and all academics know this, and PhD students, while they're doing their PhD, it seems like a hill they're not able to cross. It's like a Sisyphus problem when they're always taking this boulder or their PhD or there's some sort of a manuscript up the journal hill. It tumbles down because of reviewer 2 or because of something missing in the data or because of such small things that it seems so trivial in the larger scheme of things. So here's a very motivated researcher, because I don't know people who are working for that less money in other fields outside academia for the same amount of work they do. They take their work back home in most cases, and they're always thinking about their problems. And here are these researchers who are trying to put in their best and facing rejection after rejection after rejection when they don't know how else they could do it, because they have a limited amount of time. They have a limited amount of, let's say, resources at hand. And they're supposed to, make a lot of tangible outcomes in most good universities. And then the things which stop them seem to be out of their control. So it's a very hopeless sort of a situation. But turning it around, because I'd like to do that, because it really helps. If I were in that situation and somebody told me what I'm about to tell you, it would really have helped. So I had this one paper, which I've been working on since 2018, or even earlier than that, because the experiment that happened in the paper is in 2018. So it's based on some experiments done in 2018. We started writing the paper perhaps in 2019 or 20. And then, it took some time to get all the results together, write it up, and so on. And it's been, let's say, we would submit it with full enthusiasm to, the best journal that we thought we could identify for it. And then it would get rejected, or it would get through a very, let's say, learning process through a good review, which is also great.
Yes.
So you would have good reviewers, and then they would give us great comments. We would incorporate the comments, and it took some time, and all these, but all of this sort of adds up to your expectations from this paper, because now it's better because this reviewer said that,
Right.
yeah, and this should be improved. We improved it, we sent it back, and it was rejected again.
Right.
Even after we did all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then we this would go in so many loops. So I think it faced 7 rejections over 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, through different journals and things like that. So my PhD got over with this paper being in review. And luckily, my university gave me the opportunity to finish my PhD with one paper under review. So this was the paper which was under review, which went away. But at the same time, now it came out in February 2023. I finished my PhD in February 2024, a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And when I finished my PhD, it was in October 2022. So it's been 1.5 years since then, more or less. So this paper has seen a lot of ups and downs itself. It's changed a lot. I really like how it looks right now. But I think I've aged a little because of this, with this paper, a little faster than just, my age.
Right.
So, but I would really, perseverance really, really helps. So if I'd lost hope earlier, then this may not have seen the light of day, or it may have gone to a journal which is not as reputed and so on. But I think it really helps to keep going. And you never know what combination of factors would really help to streamline your paper's process. So it really helps to go that one step. And when you think you're not, you want to give up, it really helps if, let's say, you force yourself not to give up for whatever reason.
Right. And when it got accepted, the relief you must have felt.
Oh man. So my partner who's with me right now, she's seen me get my PhD. She's seen me through a few more ups and downs. And it's really clear to her that I was happier because of this one paper than I was with my whole PhD. With a degree, with a degree which gives me a doctorate in my name, which I can use. I wasn't that happy with that degree as much as I was with this one thing, one link on a web page.
Oh, that's so great. I love to hear that. And it's so true. We always have those moments in our lives where you're like, this is far more important to me than even I realized,
Oh, wait. I have something to add to this.
Please.
So I had this email from this journal in my email inbox, and I got it on a Friday or something.
Yes.
I was so scared to open it because I thought that it was another rejection or another round of reviews. I didn't see it till Sunday night because I didn't want to destroy my weekend.
Right.
And I saw it on a Sunday evening or something like that. And then I was a little child again, having seen this acceptance. And then, and my partner was telling me that if I knew this would happen one day or the other, you don't have to, not see an email which comes a few days earlier, just to avoid a little,
You want to have a good weekend. You're so worried about having a bad weekend that you didn't realize you could have a good one.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, and we love to ask our guests about their hobbies too, because we want people to feel approachable in lots of different ways. We have many different things that we love beyond the work that we do. So what is your favorite hobby? What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, this is quite easy to answer for me. So for me, I think music is a really beautiful language of communication. So one that can go beyond just words and what they mean and so on. So I think I've never seen, so in my experience, I haven't seen any other mode of communication which makes me feel things even if I don't understand what the person who's, the person is saying or playing. So music is something that I really, really engage with. I really feel myself in while I'm doing it. So it feels very natural. And at the same time, I've seen the power of music even helping me in my work. So at one point of time, I was backpacking also through Indian villages and something like that. And I always used to have this acoustic guitar with me. And it would be the such a conversation starter, because they wouldn't see this some guy who looks like he's not from here walking around here and there taking local buses, and they would see this dusty guitar case, and then they would ask me to open it, very often to take selfies with the guitar. But often enough, it was just about exchange of stories, and it led to conversations. It led to simple things like singing songs would lead to conversations, which gave me much more of a deeper experience with interacting with people.
Yeah, and it's in case you need directions, it's a nice icebreaker.
It's a great icebreaker. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's really wonderful. And thank you.
Do we have time for a story about
I think we have time for one story. I was just about to ask. I think we got time for one. Give me one more story with music, please.
Oh, man. So picture this. It's a huge festival in India. Diwali, if you know, is a huge Hindu festival. Of course, it's not only a Hindu festival. It's celebrated all across India. It's the Christmas of India, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to go back from my internship back to a friend's place, and I'm traveling in a local bus. If the bus has a capacity of 100 people, there are at least 300 there. We're somehow packed like sardines, but it's not only people, it's also, let's say, the animals in the aisle.
Oh my gosh.
So we have goats, and we have produce, and we have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So in this packed bus, I missed my stop, obviously.
Right.
I didn't realize that these were all new places for me. So I sort of made my way to the front of the bus. I got off, but then when I realized where I got off, I really didn't know where it was, and it was in the middle of nowhere. So it's like a toll booth place where you collect tolls for highways and something like that. But it was completely empty. No people were there. Buses were just going past, and I couldn't stop them. I didn't even know how far back I had to go and something like that. In this situation, I'm looking around, and then I see a group of motorcyclists, obviously locals, coming to me, obviously. But what gets clearer when they come closer in the dust, is that they each motorcycle has at least one person brandishing a gun or a huge rifle with them. And I think they were just I don't know, a group of men trying to be boys. I don't know what it was. It was just they were having a free day, and they were just moving around, and they stopped seeing my guitar case. And this is amazing, because I really didn't want this kind of being in this kind of attention. And they came to me, and they stopped. I don't know why they stopped. And then they started looking around. They saw me. I'm the only person there. And they asked me, "Hey, what's that?" And then of course they know, and I tell them it's a guitar, and then they tell me to hey, so play a song. And I have to play a song, right? In this situation, I have no way out. I have to play a song.
You have to play a song.
my heart is racing, and I have no idea what to play, because of course I can't play English songs for them. I have to play something which they associate with, and I can play as well. And I don't know if my ability impact how they respond to me. So I really needed to get my act act right and play something nice. And I started playing. What happened next was really, really unexpected for me. People started singing with me. And people started singing with me. Then one thing led to the other. Other people started asking me for songs, requesting me for songs, and then they would sing, and I would just play along. And this was such a beautiful experience for me, because then everybody became a child. They weren't gun-holding men anymore. They were just children having fun with music. And this was such a nice jam session, if you could call it that, in the middle of nowhere, at the end of which they took photos, of course. And then after that, they really asked me what I was doing there. And then I told my story. And then what they did is that they made a bus stop for me where there wasn't a stop. I mean, if a group of gun-holding people went into the middle of the road, I'm sure a bus would stop. So they made a bus stop for me, and then they put me on the bus. I came back home very safely. And this is such a beautiful story coming out of something that could have gone horribly wrong, in my opinion, or in my previous experience. But music really binds people across classes and, your opinions as well, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful way to end our conversation today. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. So before we let you go, is there anything else we didn't ask you about that you'd like to say?
I don't know. I think it's nice to have conversations with people. So if people are with what they've heard, if people want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk to them as well. And my LinkedIn is open, and people can reach out wherever they want. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. We had a great time.
Yeah, the same. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity as well. Yeah.
Awesome. That's our show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. See you, everybody. Bye.